Good morning. Try that again. Good morning. Maybe we need to do some jumping jacks. No, I'm just kidding. We wouldn't make you do that because I wouldn't do them. If I wouldn't do them, I wouldn't ask you to do them. But my name's Tony, and I am the lead pastor here at Gateway. You're all a pretty good-looking bunch today. I mean, tell the person next to you that you look good. And my topic today is narcissism. So I'm going to finish out this series today called Out of the Dust. This has been a fun series. This series kind of birthed in my heart last year, almost probably 9 months ago. Just this idea that God just has this incredible way of bringing the things that we find broken, the things that we find have lost their purpose, their shine, things that are lost, things that are dead. He just has this amazing way of bringing those things back to life, bringing them up out of the dust and turning them into something that is meaningful. Yes, God gives meaning to that which has lost its meaning. So today I want to start kind of with this idea, with this question. Have you ever come across something that seemed beyond saving? It could be anything. Maybe it's a family heirloom, right? Maybe your grandkids or your great-grandkids are getting ready to get married, or somebody's getting ready, and they want to wear the dress that you wore, and you go and you get it out and you realize you didn't store it quite right? And you see this wedding dress, and it just seems beyond saving. I mean, the lace is turned yellow, it's ripped, it's like, there's no, honey, let's just go and get something different because this thing is beyond saving. Maybe it's a piece of furniture. Maybe it's a photo album. I wonder how many people in California are starting to go back into their homes and finding their photo albums that have been in those fires, and they just look at these things and say, can anything come out of the ash or the dust of this? Have we lost it forever? Perhaps it's a family heirloom, a piece of jewelry or something that doesn't fit, or it's broken, or you've lost a gem in it or something like that. Perhaps it's a plant. I had these videos and we couldn't get the videos to work, but have you ever heard of the Rose of Jericho? It's like this balled up, weed-looking dead thing. And there's videos online, you can look it up. I didn't have a video today. I had one, but it wouldn't play right. You go and they take a bowl of water and you put this dead-looking thing in the water, and over time they have this time lapse, and over time this seemingly beyond saving plant begins to open up and turn green and turns into this beautiful plant. It just amazes me as sometimes I think God gives us things like that to remind us that this is who He is. This is His creation. This is what He does. Maybe it's an old classic car. Where's Eric? In the kids' room. He's an old classic car, right? Maybe some of you who've restored cars. John's walking up. He's restored old classic cars. You go and you're driving down the road and you see this thing off of the road and you're like, wow, that at one time was like a masterpiece of a car. I mean, this was an amazing car, but now it's set out. The windows are broken. It's dented up. It's banged up. It's rusted, falling apart. And you look at it and you think, wow, it's beyond repair. It's beyond hope. The truth is that most all things have this, that we value, the things that we value decay. They just decay. They lose their luster. They lose their beauty. They lose their value. They lose their purpose that we used to use them for. There's an entire career path that a young person could take, or an older person if they wanted, and it's called conservator. If you've ever been to a museum and you've seen these ancient old things that they found buried in the ground, and people look at those and think, wow, that's beyond saving, a conservator knows how to restore these things. They know how to keep them from decaying more. And there's this entire career path. And one person who's connected to the Michigan museum system said this: it's important to remember that it is in the nature of all things, all material, to deteriorate. All deterioration is due to the natural forces of physics and chemistry. The handling and the moving and the bending and the flexing and the using and manipulating of an item causes it to break down. It causes it to decay. The energy that is used in doing all these things causes wear and tear and fraying and breakage. Chemical mechanisms for deterioration involve chemical reactions too. They break down the structure of materials. We might not understand the science behind it, but all of us here today have seen things or had things in our life that we've seen get to a point where we wonder, is it beyond saving? Is it time to just go out and get rid of it and get something new because it's no longer of use, it's no longer of purpose to me? We all know that things don't last forever. At first glance, it looks hopeless. But then, someone with the skill and the vision and the care, they come along and they begin to breathe new life into that thing. If you've ever watched these restoration shows, it's amazing at what they can do with things that they're ready for the dump, right? What was broken, what was forgotten, suddenly it has new life. It has a new purpose. I don't know if there's anyone here, and what I'm trying to do is get us all to agree things don't last forever. And I think we're kind of at a point where we all can agree with this. We all hold out hope for possibilities that family heirlooms or dead plants or old cars or old buildings or antiquities found in the ground that somehow can be brought back. But what about life? We talk about the decay, and we talk about the breakdown, and we talk about the losing of purpose, and we talk about these things. But what about our dreams? What about our marriages? What about our relationships? What about our faith? What about the things that used to have value to us, the things that used to be important to us, the things that used to give us purpose and meaning that have somehow been beaten down, used, bent, twisted, abused to the point where now you wonder, is it something that's just beyond saving? What about the dead places in our hearts? And many of us, including me, we carry the weight of loss. We are convinced that there is no chance for restoration. There is no chance for resurrection or dead things to come back to life. It's just too late to mend that relationship. It's just too late to chase after that dream. It's too late to find peace. It's too late to find purpose. It's too late for me to find meaning again in my life. So in our story today, there are two sisters who were in a situation that was beyond saving. And it had to do with life. Their story is important to us today. And you say, well, why is an old, ancient biblical story? Because our stories intersect with their stories. The things that they struggled with, the things that they were dealing with are the same things that we do. Their brother, Lazarus, had died. And like them, we too often say in times like that, God, if only you had been here. If only you had showed up. If only you would have been in that relationship. If only you would have been in this situation. If only you would have been there for this. And so their story is a lot like our story. But the amazing part of our story isn't so much their questions or their struggle. The amazing part of the story is that Jesus, who was God in the flesh on earth, who could have been there, shows up right when everyone thinks it's over. And I know some of you are skeptical about God. Yeah, that sounds like God. Always showing up when it's too late. That's the interesting part of this story, is that Jesus actually shows up when it's too late. That when it's beyond saving, when the situation has gone so far that there's no coming back. And Jesus stands. Listen, he goes there too late, but he stands at the tomb of his friend. It's sealed, it's final, the body is decaying. And Jesus declares this. Maybe I didn't put that one in there. There it is. I am the resurrection and the life. I am. And the question this morning that you and I ought to go into this story with in our hearts and in our minds is this. Is there really someone like the someone who came along with the vision and the skill, right? And to breathe new life into my life? Is there really truly someone like this? Is there someone who can breathe new life into the dead parts of my heart and of my life? That's an important question for us today. So let me give you a little background on the story. There's a little town just about 4 miles outside of Jerusalem where Mary, Martha, and Lazarus live. Now, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus are siblings. And we know from other stories in the Bible that they were very, very unusually close to Jesus. They were very close friends with Jesus. Jesus often, when he would go that direction, would visit them and meet with them. We know this because there's other parts. Mary, of the siblings, was the same Mary. Maybe you don't know this story, but there's a story in the Bible where this woman comes into this dinner where Jesus is lounged around a table. And she is broken because she's realized who this person is. And she pours this expensive, like a whole year's worth of incomes, oil onto the feet of Jesus. And she begins to wipe it with her. And all the religious people are upset. And all the disciples are upset. They're upset because it's like, imagine what we could have done with all that money. And there's people like that, you know. They can't see beyond the dollars and cents. It was more important than that. But this is the Mary who poured the perfume on Jesus' feet and wiped them with her hair. Jesus receives word. He is off about 2 days away from where Lazarus and them lived. And he receives word because somebody sent, Mary and Martha sent somebody to Jesus. They knew where he was, 2 days away, to let him know Lazarus, whom you love, is sick. Now, he didn't have a cold. He didn't have something mild. For them to send for Jesus means he's on his deathbed. And they're expecting Jesus to drop everything he's doing and run there to save him before he dies. And you might think Jesus would run, but he doesn't. Instead, Jesus hangs out where he's at for 2 more days. And in those 2 days, Lazarus dies. Long story short, Lazarus dies, then Jesus says to his disciples after Lazarus is dead, okay, let's go see Lazarus. There's a lot that's going on in this story, and I won't get into the details of that, but you could read it in John, the 11th chapter. So Jesus begins his 2-day journey to see Mary and Martha because he knows in his heart that Lazarus is already dead. And here comes Jesus strolling into town, and Mary stays in the house. Martha knows Jesus is coming, and she says, Jesus is coming, let's go see him. She runs to Jesus. Mary, though, stays in the house. I ain't going to go see him. He didn't come right away. He let us down. I'm just going to stay home. That's what I assume is going on. It doesn't really say Mary was mad, but why else wouldn't she go see Jesus? Martha, though, runs to Jesus, and the first thing Martha says to him, She doesn't even say hello. She says, Lord, if only you had been here. And how often do we feel like that in our life? Why did God allow this to happen? Does he care? Does he love us? Does he know what I'm going through? Is he just some kind of this person off in the distance, this being off in the distance that just kind of spun this thing on its axis and walked away and said, good luck? Then a very important scene happens in the story. And this is a critical scene. It starts in John chapter 11, verse 23. Jesus told her, Lord, if only you had been here. Jesus replies, your brother will rise again. Yes, Martha said, he will rise when everyone else rises at the last day. This is important. Martha doesn't grieve. She's not grieving because she thinks there's no hope for Lazarus. She is torn apart. She is in pain. She is in agony. She is looking forward to the day. This isn't what's going on here. They are not like hopeless. Martha actually believes in the resurrection at the end of time. And she believes that in that day Lazarus will come out of the grave. She believes in the resurrection and she knows that it will happen. So what's the problem? Next verse. Jesus told her, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live. Anyone who believes in me will live, even after they die. Jesus doesn't say, I will be the resurrection and the life. The word that is used here is an active present verb. He's saying, I am. Martha, why don't you believe? Why don't you understand who I am? You're waiting for the end. You're waiting for the resurrection at the end, but I'm telling you it's important that you understand who I am. Martha believed in Jesus and the end time resurrection, but she hadn't quite yet come to understand the power of Jesus Christ. She hadn't quite understood who exactly she was looking at. She hadn't yet come to understand this. Jesus is the God who stands in the flesh in our time and our space. He stands outside the tombs of our life. And he says, it's not over. This is not the end. Believe in me and you will live. And I'm not speaking in eternal context. I'm speaking about now. Martha didn't understand that Jesus is more than just a ticket to heaven. Jesus is so much more than just I prayed the prayer and I'm going to heaven, but it's a free wild, wild west now. She didn't understand that Jesus is more than just eternal life. He is the author of life now. I think I got him. I pray that they are not in the resurrection. That fly's been bugging me all day. He is the author of life here and now and in the end time resurrection as well. Martha couldn't make this connection, and neither did Mary. Nobody did. That God is saving us now. He is taking the things in our life that are dead, that are broken beyond repair, and He's restoring, and He's renewing, and He's bringing back where there was no peace, He brings peace. Where there was no hope, He brings hope. Where there was no joy, He brings joy. He's beginning to give us life here and now. Jesus makes the claim that I am the resurrection of the life. What He's saying is, I am Lord over the grave, but Mary, Martha, I'm also Lord over life. Next verse. Everyone, He says, who lives in me and believes in me will never, ever die. Now look, do you believe this, Martha? Do you believe this? Jesus stands before this woman whose heart is broken, stunned by the grief of death. He stands and He says, do you believe this? And her answer might be something that you and I might say. Why we don't see the power of Jesus' resurrection now in our life. Martha sounds like a good church-going person who's been believing in Jesus since Sunday school when they were a little kid, who's been going to church, who's been doing all the right things, who's been living a good, clean life. And she says, I believe in you. Yes, Lord, she says. She told him, I have always believed you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one who has come into the world from God. Now, how many people in our churches will say this, but there's no power of resurrection in their life? Their lives are still dying on the inside. Their relationships are still dying and decaying in the tombs that they have created. The stones are still rolled in front of their lives as though I'm dead inside. There's no joy. There's no love. There's no peace. They say this, but they don't believe it. They don't believe that Jesus truly is who He says He is. It isn't the wrong answer, but it just falls short of the mark. The titles are right, but the understanding of exactly what Jesus is offering you isn't quite understood. Martha gets the title. The words are right, but she is denying the implications of what Jesus being I am, the resurrection and the life means. We see it in the next verse. Jesus was still angry. Now, some of your translations say Jesus was deeply moved, and it sounds like Jesus is like, he's sad and he's moved to go and raise Lazarus from the dead, but that's not it. It says the word, I looked it up, I think, why is this translation using the word angry? Jesus got angry? Yeah, Jesus got angry. The word implies that He was so stirred and moved inside to this, He was frustrated with the situation that nobody believed this. Even His own friends who admitted He was the Son of God and the Messiah and all that, they still didn't understand what it was He was offering them. Jesus was still angry as He arrived at the tomb, a cave with a stone rolled across its entrance. Roll the stone aside, He said. But Martha, and here it is, here's the disconnect. But Martha, the dead man's sister, protested. Lord, he has been dead for 4 days. You know, because you were off doing your thing. The smell will be terrible. And here we see the disconnect between what Martha believed and who Jesus really is. Martha saw a situation that was beyond saving. It was too late. It was lost, gone, dead. You don't come out of the grave. What was in the tomb was now decaying, and the odor unbearable. I find it interesting that the stone covered the grave. It was the obstacle that kept Lazarus from coming out alive. Now, I find it more interesting that Jesus doesn't move the stone. It's kind of like Jesus is a union guy. I'm here to do one thing, man. My job is to raise people from the dead. You all move the stones, and you all do that, and you do that. I'm going to do what I do. Interesting. Jesus doesn't even pray. Father, move the stones. Jesus told everyone there, you move the stone. Because he's alive in there. You move the stone. Perhaps this is a challenge for you and me. It isn't what God can't or won't do in your circumstances, but it's the stones that we just refuse to move out of the way that keeps us trapped in our tombs. The dead areas of our lives stay dead because we refuse to move the obstacles, the doubts that prevent us from experiencing his full power. Next verse. Jesus responded. Martha's protesting. You can't move the stones. He's dead. He's decaying. It's going to stink. Didn't I tell you, Martha? I am the resurrection and the life. Jesus responded, didn't I tell you that you would see God's glory if you believe? If you believe. The power, the glory of God in your life isn't from your belief in who he is. It's from your belief and your trust in what he can do in your life. The glory of God is unleashed in your life when you trust him enough to remove the things that keep you in your graves, that keep you in your tombs. What stones are in your life that need to move so that God's power and glory can work in you and your marriages and your families and your relationships and all that you do in life? What stones are there that you need to move? Is it doubt? Is it fear? Is it skepticism? Is it pride? Is it hate for people? Jesus goes on. Then Jesus shouted, Lazarus, come out! And the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound in grave clothes. His face was wrapped in a headcloth. And Jesus told them, unwrap him and let him go. Now, I may be wrong, and Lazarus might be hiding somewhere as a disguise today because he now lives forever and ever and ever. But he doesn't. You see, we want to focus on the resurrection, and Lazarus got sick again. Lazarus died again. So why did Jesus go through all this? So that we would know and that we would believe that he has the power to do what he says. And he has the power to do it in your life. And I know all of this sounds very spiritual, and there ain't nobody here going down to the graves at the cemetery and raising people from the dead. I get that. And the people that you've lost and you've grieved, I'm just telling you, you're probably not going to see them in this life. And it seems spiritual, it seems mystical, and it seems emotional. And I want to make this all very practical for us today, because resurrection and life isn't just for the end of life or the end of time. Jesus wants you to have life now. abundant life. He wants there to be joy in you. He wants there to be peace in you, love and hope. He wants you to have a purpose and a meaning in this life. But for many of us, these things seem dead and beyond help, beyond resurrecting. Listen, your confession or your belief that Jesus is the Son of God isn't enough. What? I thought that's all I had to do. To have eternal life is just believe that Jesus is the Son of God. Martha believed it, and yet she didn't understand it. For many of us, these things just seem beyond our control. And for many of us, there are stones or obstacles that are in the way. So why don't we see the power of the resurrection of Jesus in our life? Let me give you some very practical and how this plays out in your life. Skepticism is a stone that keeps the power of God out of your life. Jesus is a mystery. I'm just going to tell you this. If you want to know God, you can know God. You can know God by knowing Jesus. He is the image of the invisible God, but there's a mystery to him. Let me ask you, do scientists who are skeptics stop being scientists because they don't understand something? No. And you will spend the rest of your life seeking to try to understand God, trying to understand the depths and why he is who he is and why he does what he does. But that is not the focus. The focus is getting to know the person of Jesus Christ and the love that he has for you. Pride is a stone that has been rolled in front of the tomb of your life, and it keeps you, and pride has a way of decaying us from the inside out. Broken relationships. Both of you are hurt. Listen, your pride keeps you from experiencing the power of God in your relationships because you refuse to move the stone of pride. They've hurt me. You don't understand what they did. You don't understand. They're just not right. This isn't about me. It's about them. Listen, humble yourself and let your love overrule your disagreements. Let your love for that person, whether it's a son or a daughter, whether it's a friend, whether it's a pastor or somebody in your life, pride rots us from the inside out, and it's a stone that keeps the decay in. If you want to experience the power of what Jesus can do in your life, humble yourself and ask them for their forgiveness, whether they ask you or not. Bitterness is a stone. Someone hurt you deeply. Someone did something to you that is painful. Listen, that pain is the stone that keeps you decaying on the inside. I'm giving you a practical. See, I don't understand. I thought that this is all about magic and miracles and dead people coming to life. Listen, Jesus is the embodiment of love and righteousness and holiness. And when you begin to live out him inside of you, and you begin to roll these stones away, your life changes. And not only your life, but your relationships change, your marriage changes, your life begins to take on new meaning. He resurrects you from the dead, sinful, hateful, judgmental lives that we live. This is who he is. I'm going to ask our team to come. We're going to close with a song. You say, I've believed my whole life who Jesus is. You want to know why your kids and your grandkids have leaving the church in droves? because we talk about our faith in a way that is heady and I believe in Jesus, the Son of God. And we have all these religious do's and don'ts and stuff like that. But here's the real reason why. They just aren't seeing the power of the resurrection becoming real in your life. They're not seeing change in your relationships. They're not seeing change in who you are, in your love for people who aren't like you. I know this is a little scolding. I apologize for that. But I'm speaking to myself. I want my kids and my grandkids to see that following Jesus isn't just a religion, but there's true power in this person that I've invited into my life and who I want to follow. And that power changes me. It takes what was dead and it brings it back to life. It gives me joy and purpose and meaning. And I don't always live that out, and I get that, and we have grace for one another. But I want to be a church that believes this kind of stuff. I want to be a church where people, they don't know what we're against more than they know what we're for. We're for joy and hope and peace and love and understanding and non-judgmental. These types of, this is the love of Jesus, the resurrection power. So as we sing this, think about the stones in your life. How are you going to experience the I am resurrected? How are you going to experience Jesus in this new, fresh way? I don't think you will unless you're willing to move some stones out of the way and just make yourself open and bare to who he is. And you start there. You start there. And it's a journey. It's a walk. It's okay. I'm picking up what Jesus is putting down. I'm going to start to follow him and listen to what he says. You'll start to experience his resurrection life in a very real and meaningful way this morning.
The weapon may be formed, but it won't prosper. And when the darkness falls, it won't prevail. 'Cause the God I serve knows only how to triumph. And my God will never fail. Oh, my God will never fail. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. In the mighty name of Jesus, every war he wages, he will win. When I'm not backing down from any giants, 'cause I know how this story ends. Yes, I know how this story ends. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Death could not hold you. The veil torn before you. You silenced the boast of sin and grave. The heavens are roaring the praise of your glory. For you are raised to life again. You have no right a victory, for the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory, for the battle belongs to you, Lord. What the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory, for the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory, for the battle belongs to you, Lord.
Let me pray with you before I let you all go. You know, I know some here, they're like, sounds great. I'm not ready for that, and that's fine. There is no pressure at all to become a Jesus follower in this place. But we do say this: you belong even before you believe. This is a great community, a great group of people that you belong in this community. But maybe you're thinking this morning, I've heard all this stuff. I grew up in the church and I kind of got away from it. And I'm just going to tell you, it's all about Jesus and this, that he is the resurrection and the life. That whatever your life, whatever turns it's taken, whatever things are dead in you, religion is not going to bring those things back to life. But Jesus can. Jesus can. And I hope this morning that you would pray in your heart, that you would decide in your heart that I don't understand all of it. I'm kind of like Mary. I think he's probably the Son of God, but I don't fully understand that. That's great. Take the journey, and you'll begin to see him work in those dead areas of your life. And you can pray that prayer this morning. Just invite him into your life. And then there's those of you that have believed for a long time, and you've seen the power of restored relationships, restored dreams. You've seen the restoration of what's happened in your life when you've lost to the point where you thought, this is it, I can't go any further. You've seen what Jesus' grace and love does in your life. And now you're giving back. And you're sharing your life with other people who are going through similar things. That is just as, that is resurrection. That is resurrection. Father, thank you for a hope. For hope. You have not left us alone. But Jesus, you have come and you have walked this earth. You have put on flesh. You have sweated and bled and cried like we do. And yet you went into the grave, died, and the power of the Father raised you forever and ever. You are the creator, author, perfecter of life. Where else can we go? Nothing else offers us what you do. May we put our hope and our faith in you. Begin to work. Help those here who have stones that are heavy and hard to remove. Give them strength and courage to move those stones and to have faith that what once was dead will come out of those tombs. There will be a new joy, a new love, a new peace that they've never understood, that they could never understand wholly or completely. But it's there. A purpose that has meaning. Thank you, Jesus, for all that you've done for us. In Jesus' name, amen. And you all, now, we don't pass a plate. There are offering baskets in the back, a big offering box there and in the foyer. If you would like to drop, you can also give to our ministry here via online. But you are dismissed. God bless. We'll see you next week.